Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Outlaws Podcast. After a brief hiatus, we are delighted to return to the captivating world of Wings of Fire. Without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce our host, Tupelo.
Hello everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Outlaws Podcast. We are a Wings of Fire-based podcast in which we invite a few of our guests to talk about a different book in the series created by Tui T. Sutherland and published by Scholastic. And it's definitely been a while since the last recording, since we did the last one on The Brightest Night on March 2023, and here we are recording for Moon Rising in November 2024. I apologize for the long wait, but I'm happy to say we're back and hoping to bring a new format for the show. Without further ado, I'm your show host Tupelo, and here are our guests for today.
Hello, I'm Yes-Guy. I just make Wings of Fire memes, that's about it, but I'm also working on my own series as set book on Wings of Fire, but still has some carryover.
Hello, I'm Sandfly. I've been reading Wings of Fire back to back over and over for the better part of a decade.
I'm Taryn. I got into Wings of Fire around, Thanksgiving of, 2021, and proceeded to marathon it over the course of the next 5 months, getting done, 2 days before Flames of Hope came out. And I also write fanfiction a lot. If you go onto Archive of Our Own and look for Taryn25, you will find that I am actually writing a fan arc called The Pyrian Conspiracy, but I need to get back to that. It's been languishing for a while.
Yeah, I know. It's definitely been a while since a lot of us caught up with Wings of Fire stuff, because we haven't gotten an official major release since April 2022. That was with the Flames of Hope, I think.
Yeah, and then we got the guide earlier this year, and now we have confirmation of Arc 4. Yay!
Yeah, that is something I wanted to bring out, that Arc 4 is confirmed to be in development.
I'm hyped for that.
And as for, I think the Darkstalker graphic novel that everyone's hyped for is going to come out sometime next year, and Escaping Pearls at the end of December.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But with Moon Rising, it's definitely a bit different, because this is the first time I've come back to it since, I want to say, early college, late high school. Because, I remember looking at the Darkstalker cover one time, and that's what caused me to pick it up. And then I finally got to the point where, I think it was 2021. Yeah, I caught up with Arc 2. So it's definitely been 3 years. I remember exactly now, because I remember I was rereading Darkness of Dragons before I went to college, and I read that in one day, because I didn't have enough space to pack for it into the car for college, so that was a challenge.
Yeah, when I first went to college, I took a whole box of the various books that I hadn't read, and over the course of my first year, went through all of them.
Yeah, when I went to college, I brought all of my Wings of Fire books.
I'll be fully honest, I'm still waiting for the series.
Yeah, I brought the second arc with me to college, but I have my bookshelf where I keep everything else. It's becoming really cluttered fast because I collected everything. I ordered the limited edition book 1 earlier in October, and I didn't open it until last night because I was away. I forgot to set the address to my apartment and not my house.
I'm getting that. I'm getting that Christmas.
Oh, nice. But yeah, as I wanted to say with Moon Rising, it's definitely different because I remember the first time I was reading it, I was kind of sad that we weren't focusing on the Dragonets of Destiny any longer because I'd grown attached to them over the course of the first arc. It was definitely a shift getting into book 6 and by extension arc 2 because it was a major shift in protagonists, like both physically and mentally.
Yeah, because you go from all the Dragonets trying to like stay hidden during a war and figure out a way to stop it to then peacetime, a new school, and the most anxious little bean that has appeared in the series so far.
That's definitely how I describe Moon.
That was a thing because like getting into Moon's character was a lot different for me personally because there's a lot of comparisons and contrastions for both Moon and Starflight.
Yeah.
Because there were like some things that were similar in terms of like background and keeping them themselves, and then other things were majorly different, such as having powers and also their motivations and goals. I would say that in Arc 2, like in comparison to like Book 1, it tones it down in terms of subject matter in comparison to the first book, but in other ways it enhances it. I mean, the bomb, the dragon flame cactus literally lit off in the library and it killed Big Tail and what was her name? Carnelian.
Yeah.
Carnelian, yeah. It was the,
I remember reading that.
Yeah, it was the history classroom, and then it's one of those things where like you don't expect to see this sort of thing in a book marketed to kids. Where it's just like at first, yay, there's a war is over, and now everybody's in school, and then a bomb goes off.
Yeah,
and
that
kills people.
That was a super huge shift in tone. Like that was crazy.
The rest of it was like fairly lighthearted in comparison to the first book, because the first book, like there was the entire Skywing arena and having to fight prisoners of war, and I remember this so vividly during a reread. I realized that the Nightwings executed all the Icewing prisoners like at the end of their escape.
Yeah, and that's a good bit of foreshadowing to like I think one of the biggest facets of the entire arc's story, where it's like at first you would think, well, okay, why did they only kill the Icewings? And then all of a sudden we get to this whole thing of like the Icewings and the Nightwings have hated one another for millennia. Just because of basically Icewing's spite.
They did, yeah, and that continues in this book with Winter against Moon, because of his prejudices that the Icewings were basically held on to all their lives.
Yeah, we didn't really get to see Icewing Nightwing rivalry in the first arc because, like we never saw any Icewings besides Fjord.
Yeah.
And
that also, actually we did see Queen Glacier during the first arc.
Well, yeah, but we only saw her for like the epilogue of one book, and we didn't properly, and she didn't even interact with any Nightwings, so we didn't see any of this Icewing Nightwing rivalry.
Yeah.
And I really like that this book expands on it a lot.
I was gonna say, like, we did get like Vita, whoever it's pronounced, in the prologue of book 1, but he like died within like 3 pages, so it's not even worth mentioning.
It also recontextualizes like one of the big things of the original like Arc 1 prophecy, where it's like you have a Skywing, you have a Mudwing, you have a Seawing, you have a Sandwing, and you have a Nightwing. And Rainwings are not part of it because ever since that war happened that was in the guidebook, where the Rainwings lost like half their tribe in the war and basically said, yeah, we are too violent, let's not anymore. And then that just leaves the Icewings to be excluded, and it kind of makes you wonder, well, why were they excluded? And then right now it says it just really shows that the Nightwings like excluded the Icewings out of the prophecy entirely, probably out of historical spite. Just like, no, we're not letting you guys save Pyrea.
Spite and hatred are definitely some of the driving forces against the main characters throughout the series. This isn't necessarily limited to Arc 2 specifically, but this is like a common theme where it's holding on to your hatred and how that destroys a lot of things around you, both physically and mentally.
Yeah, and it also helps with like how the school was, where it was intended to like open all the different tribes up to each other after 20 years of thinking, oh, you guys are all savage murderers, and and the biggest thing was having the biggest blood feud in the setting finally come to an end when everybody is able to just be stopped for a second and listen.
It was definitely that, and it was also kind of what inspired the Dragonists to build the school to fight the CEO of racism.
You're Darkstalker in this case?
Yeah, it came out of nowhere, what?
In this case.
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Because, yeah, that was a major thing, was just like the gradual reveal
Of you know what.
Darkstalker, like especially during his history. And I remember rereading this, and I realized that there was a lot of manipulation going on in the beginning, because he was playing onto Moon's deepest insecurities and fears, and he was able to take advantage of that. And I think that's one of the more important themes in this book.
When I read through the series the first time, it was like 8-ish years ago, so I was a lot younger, and I didn't really pick up on it. But like as I reread it a lot, I was like, dang, Darkstalker really is just manipulating Moon, and there's like it's just straight manipulation.
Yeah, with him being able to basically read everybody's mind, all he had to do was look for someone who not only could also read minds, but also who had like the right thoughts. And Moon, having been raised to hide from every dragon she saw, and suddenly being thrust into a place where she knew nobody and was very out of and really couldn't control her powers yet, he basically went, this is someone that I can use. And basically rereading back through the arc and Darkstalker's own Legends book, you can really tell that the entire relationship with Moon, like all the friendliness, all the stuff that he says about, I'm not a monster, that's just what everybody else has said about me, is just the biggest lie.
Yeah.
Like the second biggest lie in the series.
I'm not a monster except for killing.
Yeah, I know I killed my dad, but...
Yeah.
But he deserved it. He was super adamant about deserving it. Deserving it.
Yeah, like the whole thing was just stringing together a web of lies.
Because everything with Darkstalker was always like, no, I did not do anything wrong by doing this. You are bad for thinking that I did something wrong by doing this, and I have a perfectly good reason. Well, I think it's perfectly good.
Yeah, rereading through Darkstalker's character, like it was definitely interesting coming in with a fresh perspective, especially when you notice he never takes accountability for anything.
But yeah, that's true.
Which, like, I didn't really notice at the first time, but rereading it, I was like, oh my god, this is... how did I miss this?
Until the very end, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to book 10.
Right. Hyperion says, controversial take, but I think manipulating people is bad. Yeah, I think that might be a hard topic we need to discuss. Let's continue this for an hour. No.
Yeah, it's really probably like Darkstalker's narcissism is probably his biggest character trait, even above like how strong he is and how like charismatic and everything, because like every single relationship he has, except probably Whiteout, is one of those things where like, I will be friendly to you as long as you do what I say. Because like his whole plot with Fathom in his book is basically like, oh, your family got massacred by an animus and you don't want to use your powers anymore because of it. That's so sad, but forget what you want. You're going to use animus magic and like it, even if I had to mind control you.
Yeah, that Darkstalker's character was definitely interesting to reread in this book, but I think what was even more interesting was rereading some of the other characters, because I remember rereading... who was it? Like it was definitely Moon, like was interesting to reread, but I think also Winter, because I'm in the camp where I did not like reading his perspective for reasons that I will get on about once we get to the Winter Turning episode. But I can see why some people sympathize and like his character in the sixth book, because there were some moments where he had like those moments of clarity, especially during the final chapter. But it was a lot to take in, and it's kind of hard to beat your own preconceptions about a pre-existing character, because that was one of the biggest challenges, was overcoming my initial impressions.
Yeah. And that even like resonates a lot with Winter, because for his entire life up until that point, he had it beaten. He had it almost literally beaten into his head. Nightwings are evil. Never trust them. Icewings are the best. And his entire thing from like when he first appeared was just like, is just like, I do not trust her, but she's still being nice to me. Why am I feeling this? Why is she being nice? They are not supposed to be nice. Why do I like this?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty much in the same boat when it comes to what I feel about Winter. Like, I get that, like, going up that way, but you're still kind of not a good person, you know?
I find Winter a really compelling character, both. Like, I also don't like reading his book a lot, but I do enjoy, like, how he's clearly trying to stick with what he, like, hang on. Like, there's a battle going on in his head between what he's been taught his whole life and what he's experiencing for himself. And
Yeah.
you can see that all throughout, even just book 6, when Moon is inside his mind, where Winter is like, well, she doesn't seem super evil.
Yeah, and he realizes, like, even from their first meeting, where like he was threatening her because he thought she was going to eat his scavenger, and then once she explained to him, no, I'm not going to eat him. I don't want anybody to eat him. And he just goes, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting rereading his character in book 6, because I don't know, the Winter I remember reading is different from the Winter I read now in some ways. And I think it was because of those preconceptions, but I'm definitely more open to reading more about him. I remember another thing I wanted to bring up was, I remember like going on some forums and reading, like, people were complaining that Moonwatcher was a Mary Sue, and I disagree with that standpoint, really.
That is one of my biggest pet peeves, of like the lack of media literacy around like a good portion of the fandom, where everybody goes, oh, Moon is a Mary Sue because all of this stuff happens to her. And I just think, you guys do not remember everything else that happened to her during this point, because like, she does not make friends easily. She gets abandoned by everybody else, even Kinkajou. After everybody finds out, you can read minds and see the future, and you didn't tell us. And then her whole thing after that is like trying to make up for it and get everybody to trust her again. And even after that, she is easily manipulated by this one guy for no reason because she trusts him, even when, as she says in Arc 3, she knows that she shouldn't. And not to mention, she deliberately cripples herself a lot of the time by like not reading anybody's minds, or like not seeing the future and things like that. And even then, she's treated horribly by like a good number of other dragons, like with Anemone or Darkstalker lying to her, or even in some cases like trying to do things and not having anybody believe her because she's an outcast even among her own tribe.
I like how Moonwatcher, she like, because there's only another mind reader, I imagine Moonwatcher would like naturally gravitate towards Darkstalker, even though she knows that he's kind of not the best person, to put it lightly, you know?
Yeah, because like that is like I think the first thing that like draws her to him, because it's like he is the only person in the book that actually knows what she's going through and is able to help her, because when she's having that panic attack about foreseeing the History Cave bombing, he is the one to tell her, breathe, this is not happening yet, you can still stop it. And then also how because like he is the one, because like she grew up to that point thinking, I am cursed, there is something wrong with me. And Darkstalker goes, no, this is normal for us.
Oh.
And like I think he also kind of helps her confidence, along with things like Turtle, where he is the first one to reach out to her for reasons that are later elaborated on in his own book of having secret powers that nobody knows about, that he really that he hates himself for. And he just goes, well, you think your powers are cursed, but they warned us about the bombing, and you tried to warn us, so that doesn't mean they're all bad.
Exactly.
I think it's a very complicated situation because bad people could still do good things for others.
Yeah, and Darkstalker also embodies that, because Clearsight like knew their whole relationship would end in tragedy, but she still fell in love with him to begin with.
Without Darkstalker, we would know nothing about how the moons work and like how they affect Nightwing powers.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's true.
My extension, this book is both Moon and Darkstalker's story, essentially.
A big thing also with Moon that I think some people are bringing up in like live chat is that like, yeah, she is still kind of shy about others, where like when people confront her, she gets a lot more shrunken in on herself. Like Moon doesn't do very well when it comes to confrontations or like arguing with people.
Yeah, that was a thing I wanted to bring up. Like, this is about Umber, and this is by extension some of the other characters, because as much as I like this series, it has a habit of bringing interesting characters to the table just to put them on a bus right afterwards. And this goes for Umber, because after the bombing with Sora, like, he basically goes fugitive, and we never see or hear from him to date.
Twee has said like that she really wants to get back to Umber and Sora's story, and that we might. I would imagine that we might get something like that in Arc 4, because that is one of the multiple plot threads that have been left dangling, either for like later use or just like Twee hasn't figured out a good place to bring them back in. Because the stories are like kind of self-contained, even though they have like all the big stakes. And like when your whole thing is limited to like each book is the viewpoint of a single character, they're not going to know what's going on.
But yeah, Umber might be a main part of Arc 4. I would like to see more of him at that point.
That is a Mudwing that actually grew up in the Mud Kingdom and knows and is able to like give us some bigger insight into their culture.
As one of 4 Mudwings in this fandom, I want to say that I do want to see more of their tribe being involved, because we only really got one perspective, and we don't even see the Mud Kingdom for that long, so it's a shame.
We see like one border town that just got attacked by the Ice Wings like 2 days before, and then nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah, Argo is saying justice for Mudwings. I agree. He's one of the other Mudwings in the fandom, like us. Like, there's probably less than 10, if I'm being honest. It's kind of a shame, really.
I was gonna say something about Umber, but it's still on slip away.
Yeah.
What really intrigued me when first reading this was the way the school was set up, because it was kind of hard to imagine what the interior will look like when the majority of the book takes place under a cave. So I had to really put 2 of my brain cells together to think, oh, this is where the dorms are, this is where the hunting area is at. So it was really...
And the graphic novel actually adds in like some more depth for a good number of characters that wasn't really in the original book, because like in the graphic novel, where I imagine Twee also had some influence in like writing things or like adding or taking things from the story, they also give Umber to get back to him, like this little thought bubble where like after they have that little icebreaker thing with Tsunami, he makes the joke about pretending to be Clay, and the graphic novel, which doesn't, and this doesn't happen in the actual novel, but the graphic novel actually has him be actually showing his crush on Kibble way earlier, because he goes, "Did he think that was funny? Does he like me?" Where it's like it shows he is deliberately trying to get Kibble's attention.
I disagree because that was in the main book too. I noticed that scene.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. Like I hate to be the actually guy, but it does happen. I think when you go back and really try to read things more thoroughly, like you tend to notice a lot of minute details. Because I remember like Moon read his mind and he said Umber thought that Kiwi was handsome. Oh, that was another.
Yeah, because they're teenagers and everything, and teenagers do have things happening to them at this age.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense since they're generally classmates and not like adopted siblings, so it would make more sense. And the love triangle between Moonwatcher, Keyblade, and wait, what? And Winter. I swear I had a brain fart for a minute. I thought I mispronounced like Moonwatcher's name, and I thought I said something different. But yeah, relationships are definitely more front and center this time around, and I have some feelings about that. Like I think if done well, like it could work, but I don't know. Like during it's hard to judge this like when we're so early into arc 2. It's like essentially judging the first piece of bread in the sandwich. So we just gotta like wait and see how that plays out. But I think it's an interesting setup. Another thing I wanted to bring up was Kiwi's character, like his tendency to overanalyze a lot of things. And I get that, but like some of his analogies were kind of, I don't know. I remember when Winter was just kind of like being a jerk. He was just like, I wonder if I can punch him really fast.
I really, really like how Kibley's mind is portrayed. I really like how fast he thinks and how much he notices.
Yeah, because he's just going go 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 all the time, which is stuff that's probably built up both from an emotional standpoint, because like he would probably hyperanalyze a lot of people's behavior, given his background of like he wants to know if people actually like him, and also his stuff from like Outlaws training and also from his family.
And just generally growing up in the Scorpion Den, like you just adaptation. But definitely.
Yeah, we see glimpses of his past along with Winter when Moon reads both their minds. And yes, I think so, Kamito. Winter and Kiwi should have fought to the death from Moon's affection. I would heavily disagree with that statement. This isn't like the Roman age where we gotta murder someone to win affection.
Oh, that would be very horrible, Atticus.
But trying to think.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Imagine their relationship is like the last duel. No. I don't think they're gonna do that for the. They fight, but they end up kissing. Maybe it depends, like how.
Oh my god, yeah. Just Tom and Jerry violence. Imagine that.
That would be something. But yeah, I mean, I am curious, like how the TV show is gonna portray all this, because the TV show has been in development for some time now.
Yeah, they gave us like the leaked storyboard of like I think like 5 minutes of what would have been like probably like the first or second episode, maybe.
Let's not discuss those.
Yeah,
I heard about the leaks, but for legal purposes, I don't think I can discuss them because I don't want Warner Brothers or anything to come strike me down with the wrath of God.
Well, technically Amazon owns it now, but
I'll just say that I'm cautiously optimistic about the series.
yeah.
I want it to be good, but it's Prime Video.
I mean, it's not. I mean, there's like good adaptations and stuff, like, and it seems like they're at least giving everything time to breathe, and like they'll probably be able to add more stuff.
Atticus said in the live chat about mind reading ability. I think that it's very well done in book 6.
Mind reading was an interesting concept that was portrayed in the book because if I had to pick a superpower, I would probably pick mind reading. So it was kind of interesting seeing that. But I think it was also interesting seeing other people's psyche.
I was gonna say I really like how mind reading is portrayed because I feel that's a side of it we don't see often. But like people often go like, "Oh, mind reading is like a cool power," but like they don't take into account like being able to turn it off. So like, and of course, Moonwatcher can't turn it off, so she's just pelted
Yeah.
with thoughts 24/7, and that's actually painful.
Yeah, and it's yeah. They really this book really goes into like stuff about like the downsides of mind reading that you don't really see all that often. Where it's like you can't just turn it off or like tune people out. You have to actually like work at it in order to like not just be driven insane by by how it works. And also it also has a range is something else that I noticed because because when Moon was like grabbing Bandit in the prey center, she's able to hear air quotes Winter approaching, but but all she hears from him at first is like just anger at the start which is obvious because, oh, my scavenger got away and some ninny is probably just going to eat it.
I kind of wish my reading would make a return at some point, but we have yet to see where it goes. I mean, the Nightwings only recently, because they couldn't get their powers because of
Yeah.
they were on the island and the clouds would block out the moonlight. So hopefully we'll see it return slowly.
I wanted to say that I also think mind reading does a lot for Moon's character. Like, it helps her work past how shy she is, and of course it sets up the whole big reveal where everyone gets angry and leaves her except for Turtle. I think that Tui used it as a really good tool for Moon's development, and also like the implications of it also reveals why the Nightwings didn't have powers because 2,000 years ago when Darkstalker was defeated, they decided to start hatching eggs in caves instead of in the moonlight. And
Yeah, just never let this happen again.
that was something that I was really confused about at the end of Arc 1 because, like, did Nightwings just not have any powers? Like, it was implied that, you know, they haven't had powers for hundreds of years, if ever. Some Nightwings thought that they never ever had powers, and it was just lies. But yeah, so like,
Yeah, but you do think the rumors had to come from somewhere. And then you have Moon in the epilogue being mentioned as like, there was this little Nightwing they found in the rainforest, and that just causes a whole bunch of further questions like, who is she? Why is she in the rainforest? Why wasn't she with everybody else? And
yeah, I really like how mind reading is done both as something for Moon's development and a plot device, and how it explains it explains the gaps I mentioned in Arc 1 as well as laying stuff out for the future.
it also helps with like everybody else's like character development, because you can also tell from like various things of like how people who do things like in their own heads actually can kind of make themselves immune to mind reading. Because I remember Moon tries to read Winter's mind at first, and when he has his guard up, all she can see is just like this big bright wall of ice and can't hear any of his thoughts really at first. And then she also doesn't realize, oh, Sora is the one that planted the bomb, because Sora, in order to like help suppress like bad thoughts or things that make her nervous, just imagines everything just being covered in mud and not being able to be seen.
And the mother cool.
And also Peril, and how her thoughts are just fire all the time.
I am looking forward to rereading the rest of the second arc because I haven't read this in over 2-3 years, and like rereading the sixth book, I have read this at least a few times because the constant delays in this episode were so frequent, and so I must have read it a lot more than I can count. The same with The Dark Secret. That was another one too. I had to reread multiple times. But I think, in my personal view, like I think Moon Rising, I like the start of Arc
Yeah.
1 a little better because it got a little more into it quicker. Whereas with Arc 2, it's a slow, gradual build. And in my opinion, like
Yeah.
the plot of the second arc, it doesn't pick up until later. Like it sets up some things, but it doesn't really kick off until a later point, which we'll see pretty soon.
I think I prefer the gradual build up with arc 2 because I don't know, I've always been more for, like slow. I'm always been more for like slow foreshadowing and like building blocks into the main like part of the story, you know.
I've noticed a lot of people saying is that Arc 2 has really weird pacing when compared to Arc 1. And I don't mind it personally, but I do yeah, like Arc 2 doesn't really get going until later, and Arc 1 is more consistent.
Yeah, because like it eases us into the story this time.
Yeah.
Before it just kicks off like that. Because at first you have like the various other little plot things of like, oh, Moon hears a mysterious voice in her head. Who is he? And then, the mysterious voice in Moon's head is a evil Nightwing from 2,000 years ago who is somehow still alive. And then that's more like a mystery thing. And then the mystery takes a
Yeah.
hard right when the bomb goes off. And so the plot for that turns away from, oh, where is Darkstalker Scroll hidden to, oh my gosh, somebody just set off a bomb.
I think the chaoticness is what, in my opinion, as much as I like the structure of Arc 1 a bit better, I think Arc 2 like does the more anything can happen route a bit better, because in the first arc it was a lot more coherent in terms of plot structure because each of the main characters, they all had the same goal of stopping the war, and all the little things that they did in each of the 5 books helped contribute to that in some way. Whereas with Arc 2, like with Moon, Turtle, Kibble, Winter, Peril, they all have their own different goals and motivations, and they have yet to come in together for the final act, which we will see soon.
Yeah, they don't all start off together like with a common goal like the Dragonets of Destiny do. And then over the course of Arc 2, for spoilers, all of their plots more like meld together
Yeah.
at like the ends as like their big moments all contribute to solving the plot in their own ways.
Yeah, I've seen people who like the first arc better, and I've seen people who like the second arc better, and they usually point to these as a reason for or against it. I really think it's just preference on which one you like better.
I think they're good in their own ways, but it comes down to matter of preference. But as it stands right now, I think Moon Rising is a pretty decent introduction to the rest of the second.
Yeah. I actually kind of wish that we would have gotten more time in the school, but just like everything being normal, because it was like, oh, it's a whole thing of like everybody trying to get along and stuff, and like at first and like it really shows like throughout the narrative like how long or how far like the school has to go in like, because the whole continent just got out of a 20-year war where every other tribe was trying to kill one another, and now all the students are just expected to sit and make nice. And as we see, like after the bomb goes off and everybody else is sitting outside, we see that they're all like divided by tribes because nobody really trusts each other yet. And that's also, even though we do go back to the school on occasion, like Turtle goes back to the school afterwards instead of taking off with everybody else because he has to watch Anemone.
I was gonna say, the thing about the tribes being all together, I literally only just picked that up. That's really cool detail. I really just noticed that. because they're all used to being together. Like, no one trusts each other in between tribes.
Yeah, they all trust each other's. They all trust their own tribes, but like, even if it's 6 months after it's a really good thing that this book portrays, I think, because a lot of the scars of all the wars, or of all the fighting in the war, doesn't just go away, because like in the very first like day when everybody is settling in, Clay has to break up a fight because Carnelian and Pike nearly go at one another, and then there's when Peril shows up and everybody everybody like knows who she is, because I wouldn't doubt that a lot of people have horror stories about like Queen Scarlet's like executioner that can set you on fire just by touching you. And that's also another neat little bit of character development, not for like the actual like arc group, but also for like the school and all of its students in general. That's a thing throughout the arc that I enjoy as like a background detail.
Well, no, overall, I liked reading book 6, and I'm definitely looking forward to talking about Winter Turning, because I have a lot of thoughts about that one.
Oh yeah, I will be the server's #1 winter defender, I think, in terms of things like.
I hope I can get a Winter Defender on episode 7, because I need someone to basically counteract all my points, because I know I don't want to turn the episode into just me ranting about Winter for an hour.
Yeah, I would be that for both episode 7 and episode 10, because those are both things where like everybody decides to talk down on Winter and a whole bunch of other stuff for various reasons that he makes over the course of his arc.
I have a lot of thoughts about Winter, and a lot of them are positive and a lot of them are negative.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about Winter, and basically all of them are negative. I won't be a Winter defender, unfortunately.
I like Winter. I just like him less than all the other characters.
I like him as a character, but I don't like him as a person. Or dragon, even.
Yeah, he's a great character, and a lot of people just basically call him Ice Zuko, and that is entirely accurate, actually.
I have not watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, so I wouldn't know personally.
Right.
It's limited to the Fortnite collaboration they have.
Sure.
You guys should watch it. It was probably one of the best shows of this millennium.
But no, to close off, I think Moonrising was definitely an interesting new turning point for Wings of Fire, because in my opinion, the end of an arc is almost a soft reboot in some sense.
Yeah.
Like in the perspective that, well, it's a good portion of things have changed. It's also, it could be its own contained story in some ways.
Yeah, because it's like every arc starts off with like, oh, the events of the previous arc still happened, but now we are following a new group of characters.
I really like that because it keeps it fresh. Right. And because if we were following if we were still following the Dragonets of Destiny for Arc 2, like they've already had their moment in the spotlight, and they've already had their time to develop. And I feel like it could get stale if if we kept following them. And seeing new characters lets us explore new tribes and new ideas. What did you want to say, Esco?
I was gonna say how I like how the Arc 1 characters are still there, but they've sort of taken a back seat.
Yeah.
The new characters. They're sort of like Dark 1 characters are like overseeing the Arc 2 characters. I really like how that like passing the torch, you know?
Yeah, they're the authority figures now, and everybody else the younger group has to go out and do everything, because the Dragonets couldn't just leave school.
Yeah.
Yeah. They won it. But never mind. Talk about the Wong Dragonets. I'll say about the Wong Dragonets.
Yeah. Is there anything else we wanted to close off on?
Yeah, I was just I have a little rant about Clay that I want to do that references like another thing a lot of people flanderize about him, but it's not that important.
I don't think I've ever heard Clay slander.
Yeah.
It basically a lot of people after his book think that Twee just made him like a one-note character because they think everything about him is just her food. But it's like that is like 2 moments, and every other time, like even in this book, he is still like the peacekeeper that everybody knows, who still isn't afraid to get his claws dirty in cases like this, because like his very first thing that we see him doing in the story is like he's doing what he always did with the Dragonets of Destiny, where he's stopping two others from having a fight. And it's like, yeah, a lot of people go, oh, all he cares about is food after his book, and that ignores like a huge portion of what he does throughout the rest of Arc 1. And even though Umber makes a joke about how much he likes eating, it's still not really, that's specifically portrayed as a joke rather than being like an actual critique of his character, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's more of a running joke than actual, like, poking fun at it. It's more just a running joke about liking food.
I think I already gave a lot of my thoughts about Clay's character post book 1 back in the previous episode. So, long story short, he's still good, but I think we need more back into his insights, because I think they were really intriguing.
More Mudwing POV.
That is kind of something that it's probably a pipe dream, but that I would like for like another arc set around the Dragonets, to kind of like have them go like maybe like develop further and see how they handle things with like their new thing. Because like imagine a POV from Starflight's point of imagine a book from Starflight's point of view, where he can't see and is relying on everybody else, but is still trying to help in his own way.
I feel like that might be really difficult to write.
I'm not sure if I fully agree with that sentiment. For me personally, I think that the Dragonets' story is concluded. Like, their arc is complete.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I do agree with you. It's more of a winglet thing, I might imagine, because like their character arcs their role in the story is over, and they've kind of had their character arcs. But and doing something with them that would be a full book probably wouldn't actually be like all that good of a story, unless it was something like stupid important. But I doubt anything like that's going to come up again.
I'll take a winglet, but I don't think I necessarily would like them in the another main protagonist role.
Yeah, not like a full thing.
Well, I wanted to thank each of you for joining me for Moon Rising. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I would like to thank the audience members for joining in on this lovely day.
Samflower would like to say one more thing, apparently.
Yeah.
Sure thing.
One thing that has to be considered when choosing which character is like how they're going to develop, because having a static character for a full book would make for a less exciting book, and that Tui said that's why Kinkajou didn't get a book in Arc 2, is because she's already developed and there aren't any internal problems, because those are just as important as external problems. Like you have like Moon getting over how shy she is, Starflight trying to be brave, and Tsunami learning to trust her friends and rely on them more.
And actually be a leader rather than somebody just giving orders. And like Kinkajou still goes through her own arc even in the book, because she goes from like, oh, I don't really like Nightwings that much because they kidnapped me and experimented on me, but you're not really a Nightwing. And that comes across as like really passive aggressive, and then she turns out to later on be she becomes a real friend to Moon.
Of course. Thanks again, everyone.
You're welcome.
It was definitely a pleasure to be back, and I hope to see all of you again the next time.
Yeah, this was fun.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
What an exceptional way to dive back into the Wings of Fire universe. If you enjoyed this episode of the Outlaws podcast, we would like to invite you to explore our full catalogue of episodes available on Spotify and YouTube. For additional updates and exclusive content, please join our Discord community and visit our newly launched website. The links to both can be found in the description below. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again in the next episode of the Outlaws podcast.